Okay, yes, the stream has started. So we have a few students who have raised their hands. Aditya, Ruturaj, Akash, Karthikeyan, Rohitraj, Abhishek. Okay, yeah. So these students have completed all the exercises, is what they are saying. And I have actually shared the link for today's class. Just let me just check whether it is working fine. They're saying. And I have actually shared the link for today's class. Just let me just check whether it is working fine. They're saying. And I okay. So are you guys all fine with the tutorial that was given for Django?
Yes, sir. We tried, sir.
Okay, you tried, and were you guys able to make the website?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
were,
sir.
okay. You without any trouble, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand what is happening there?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is good. Okay, so as we have discussed, Django, it's just giving us a better way to organize our code and to separate the concerns. Say, for example, one of the concern is the model, which means the database, right? So database is separated. Another one is when a particular link is visited by the user, what should the user do there, right? Or what would the backend server do when the user has logged in, or if the user has not been logged in, what would happen, and how this is taken care. Okay, so that is all what we do with Django. Now going back to the syllabus for CS151, I hope my screen is visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so going back to the syllabus for CS151, Introduction to Python Programming, we have kind of learned not these two things. Okay, we have not learned multi-threading in Python and concurrent threads. Okay, and the examples, we have not done that so far. But otherwise, we have done a little bit of web development, introduction to HTML, introduction to Django, models, templates, and forms, etc. Okay, so that is what we have covered so far. So when you were working with the Django application, right? So let's just search for the Django tutorial. Okay, so first thing was we created the project. So I hope you are able to see my screen. I'm just doing a walkthrough with you guys about what it's the same thing that you guys have done. Okay, nothing new. So first thing is, once you have Django installed, so Django is a Python module, and how do you install Django? You can install it with pip install Django. Okay, and with Python space -m Django version, it will tell you which version of Django is installed, and here you have you have the option to, you have a page which says how to install Django. Okay, and this one also tells you about how to get your database running. Okay, so how many of you have tried with the MySQL database? Has anyone tried with the MySQL database for the Django tutorial that I have given?
Sir, I tried, but it was a little it was a little difficult for me, I think.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that's why I just returned to that default database that Django was using.
Okay, yes. So see, there's something called there's a particular subject called database management systems, DBMS. Okay, you guys have not learned that. Okay, and this MySQL database is a relational database management system. Okay, and what it does is it can actually store the particular data as as rows. So for example, if I tell you, if we have an Excel sheet, and the Excel sheet contains the roll number as the first column, then the second column contains the name, then the third column contains the mark of the first subject, fourth column contains the mark of the next subject, and the last column contains the total marks, and the next one contains the average marks. So what I am saying is that each student is student data is present in one row. So each row contains one student data. So the first column of that contains the roll number, the second column contains the name, then it contains the marks, etc. Correct? So just a second, guys. Yeah, so you have that kind of data in your Excel sheet. So let's take the LibreOffice Calc and give an example of what I meant. So let the LibreOffice Calc start. Prajwal Venkatesh Sindhekar has left the meeting. Calc, it's not starting. Unfortunately, you know, the LibreOffice Calc is not starting. Maybe it is crashing for some reason. So what I will do is I'll just take a blank spreadsheet. Okay. So I'm going to name it as example. So I've used the Google spreadsheet. Okay. How many of you looked at models? Did anyone go through that? So I gave you access to the PhD applications, right? Okay, Badraksh try to say something. Badraksh, go ahead, please.
No, nothing, sir.
Okay. So it's not an example. So we are trying to understand what is database. Okay. So a database, right? A database contains data. Okay. And it has to be in some particular organized manner. So which means that what I meant is, if let's say a roll number, name, mark M1, that is the mark 1, then M2, M3, oh okay, discard. Oh my goodness, no. Start. Okay, so that was a different issue due to which it did not start. Okay, and average. So let's say roll number 1, name is Anup, mark is 12, then 15, then 18. Okay, and then the average, so on. So there is roll number 2, let's say Jacob, 15, 17, 19, and so on. Okay. So here one thing that you can understand is there will be rows for every entry. Okay. So each entry is in a row. Okay. So Anup, roll number 1, Anup's mark is in the first row. Okay. And next roll number 2, Jacob's mark is in the second row. Okay. And then you have the third roll number and so on. Okay. Here can we have, let's say, Abhishek, who has the roll number 1? Students? So
Sir, roll number 1 is Ayan Guru.
roll number 1 is?
Sir, we
Ayan.
cannot have that, sir.
Yes, we cannot have that. Why
Because
cannot?
we'll use it as a primary key, sir.
Who said that? Badraksh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how come you know about primary key in this particular aspect?
Sir, it was taught to me in 12th, sir. We were learning Python basics and MySQL.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, right. So, Badraksh has said that they have learned Python basics and MySQL in 12th standard. Okay, so MySQL, that is MySQL. Okay, now what I was doing here was I was trying to ask you a question where I have repeated the roll number for 2 students. Now, if I do it that way, okay, let's say I want to update the marks of M1 for this person called Abhishek. Okay, for M1, Abhishek got 16 marks instead of 15 marks. ക്ലാസ്സിലിരിക്കെ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ഒരു 1 അവർക്ക് അപ്പുറം ഓക്കെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വെച്ചു ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ താങ്ക് യു സോ യാ. So we have Anoop, Jacob and Thomas and then Abhishek. So 4 students, right? Now the roll number 1 is for Anoop and Abhishek. Okay.
Yes, sir,
Let us
the
assume
primary
that there is another roll number 4 and there is another person called Abhishek. Okay, with 16, 17 and 18. Okay, let's say this is 15. Now if I want to update the marks of the Abhishek that is in the current highlighted row, how will I do that? How can I do that? I need to write a command. So first of all, what you need to understand is that database is a way to store the data in a structured manner, and what it helps us with is to store and retrieve the data by using commands. So we can write commands to create a table, to store the data and to retrieve the data and to delete the data and to update the data. So what all did I say? Let me take the SM. Yeah, so you will be able to store. Okay, first is create database or create table. Okay, insert data. Okay, delete data, update data or read data. Okay, so these are the things that you should be able to do. So in an RDBMS system, right, which stands for
Relational Database Management System.
Yes, database management system. Okay, so an RDBMS system, okay, can be used for this, can be used for creating table, inserting data, deleting data, updating data, reading data. How is that going to be done? Is that going to be done using a GUI tool or through a commands? Okay, and there is something called SQL, which stands for structured query language. Okay, so which stands for structured query language. Now SQL commands can be used with the RDBMS for the above operations and more. Okay, so what I started with was saying that if you look at a particular way of organizing the data, I can have column names and then in each column I will enter one data. Okay, here I have actually given you a problem where two students have the same roll number. Now, roll number has to be a unique entity. Okay, in this particular case, say as Bhadraksh Bhargava had said, right? Bhadraksh, right? Yeah. So, as Bhadraksh has mentioned in between, in this particular context, the roll number should be a primary key, meaning that if I
Unique
say,
address.
yeah, if I say select the name and the marks of the student who has the roll number 5, then there should be only one student who has the roll number 5 ideally. Okay, otherwise it is a mistake. If I tell in this particular situation, select the name and the marks of the student who has the roll number 1, in that situation it is going to select this particular row, one Anup and one Abhishek, which actually is wrong, and it shouldn't make such a selection, and if it makes such a selection, it should be considered as incorrect. Okay, so which means that you can actually have data stored in tables. You can also have images, I can say photo, and you can have photograph of Anup, you can have photograph of Jacob, you can have photograph of Thomas, and you can have the photograph of the student who has the roll number 1 Abhishek and the student who has the roll number 4 Abhishek. By the way, there is a slight mistake here. It shouldn't be the roll number should not be repeated in our situation, and you guys know that in your class also the roll numbers are not the same, right? If Bhadraksh has a roll number, that roll number is not there with any other student. If there is if the roll number is repeated by any chance, if it is duplicate by any chance, then it means that there was some mistake that happened somewhere, and it shouldn't have happened that way. Anyway, so I am going to make it 4 and I am going to make it 5, or I am going to make it 4 and let this be 5. Okay, the ordering, let us not worry about the ordering over here. So now if I want to update the M1 of this particular, that is, I want to update this marks 15 to 18, okay, I can write the structured query language or the SQL command stating that from student select M1 where roll number is equal to 5. So what did I say? I said from student table select this is wrong, okay, I have made a mistake. Select M1 from student table,
The roll number is equal to 4.
yes, where roll number is equal to 4.
4.
Right, that's it's actually 5, okay, because yeah, it's 5 because this is the guy I want to update, not the below one. Okay, so this is the guy I want to update, so I will keep it as 5. So this is the structured query language where I can actually write commands to manipulate the tables, okay, and that is essentially what you can think of as an RDBMS tool. So relational database management system, and the MySQL, right, MySQL, what do you say as MySQL is an RDBMS software, okay, is an RDBMS, and we use SQL with MySQL, okay. So the idea is that we will be able to use commands to manipulate and to update things. So now if you think about it, let me give you a very simple example. You guys are going to book an Uber taxi or an Ola auto rickshaw or an Ola taxi, okay. Once you have made the travel, the next time you open the Uber application or the Ola application and you go to the history, your orders, it will show you what were the previous trips that you have taken. Would it not show? It will show, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So same way, like let's take the example of Swiggy, or let's take the example of Book My Show. So if I go to Book My Show and I try to make a booking for a movie, and I pay the money, it will create the code that I can show in the theater, so that I can go inside the theater for watching the movie, correct? And once the movie is over, right, this ticket will no longer be valid, but it will be available in your history, correct? So that is Book My Show. Same way, Swiggy, if I open up my Swiggy application and I go to the history, it will show me what are the previous orders and from which restaurants have I bought, right? Does it show or does it not?
Yes.
It shows. How is all of that done? So that is what you call as the back end. Back end, or it is the back end or the database storage where this data is actually stored, and your Swiggy application, your Zomato application, your Book My Show, or any application that you can think about uses this SQL. Okay, even the PhD applications that you have seen, the Django application that I had shared from IIIT Trichy, right, the private repository, do you guys remember?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that particular application, right, if you have looked at that, you will see that there is a database, because when one person randomly on the internet wants to apply to the PhD applications at IIIT Tiruchirappalli, that person will enter their username, password, they will enter their name, their email address, their phone number, their address, and all those details. Now some clerk has to sit down and write it down in a ledger, right, in a notebook, right, so that the next time we want a question, we want to see who all had applied, it should be visible from the book. So in this particular example, we don't have a book and a person who is writing it, but we have automated it using the database system and the Python software, okay, or the database system and the Django software. So that is the idea. So here in this case, right, we can have a roll number, name, M1, M2, M3, average, and I can also have, let's say, another table which contains, so I'm saying this is one table, okay, let's say I'm just going to insert one row above, and I'm going to call this as, let's say, how do I merge it. So I'm going to say that this is a table 1, okay. So this is let's say this is the table 1, okay, and now I'm going to say is that let's say this one, right, over here we let's call it as another table 2 okay. So table 2 and table 1, so roll number, then let's say we have address, okay, phone number, guardian name, okay. So in this particular thing, what I am trying to tell you is, over here up till now I have discussed with you about one single table or one book, one register where I enter every detail. In this particular example, I am going to tell you about two registers, two books, one book to enter the marks and one book to enter the roll number, the address of the student, the phone number and the guardian name of the student. But the name is missing, the student name is not entered in this register. So if I want to get the student name, how can I do that? I need to select the roll number, use that roll number and then select the name. So this is what you call as relational, because we are also managing certain relationships between two tables or multiple tables. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So meaning that we have something called a relational database management system. So when we say that relational database management system, always think that the database is a table which contains particular rows, and each row has a unique key that is identifying that row. That is very important. Students, just give me a moment. I am getting a call and I don't know who it is. Hello? Yes? Illa ma'am, thank you. Alright, so that is what you call as a relational database management system. Now, relational database is what we call as the different tables and the relationships among those tables. Okay, because we know that if there is roll number 5 here, then it means it is the address of this Abhishek that is going to be entered there. Then it will have the address, let's say Haryana, something, okay, and phone number, okay, some phone number, guardian name, some name, okay, and so on. So which means that we will be able to, we have kind of discussed two tables, and there is some relationship between these tables. Okay. So there can be keys as in unique keys that we will be using. So this is called a, in this particular case, right, the roll number is called a primary key. Okay. And then we will be, and by using these information, right, we will be able to create the table. How do we create the table? We can create the table as create table student table. I'm unable to recollect my the syntax, because I have not used databases this kind of things for a long time. Create table.
Sir, it consists of that column names
Yes,
that we are
column
putting,
names,
right?
correct. So I was just referring that and I got it. And then you write the column names. So here, right, in our example, we have a roll number. So we will write roll number, okay, and the data type is going to be integer.
It's the primary key.
Yeah, and it's going to be a primary key, right? We just write primary, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then we write the next one, which is, let's say, the column 2, which is like in our example, name. So name, and that is going to be a string. Okay, I'm just assuming that we have such a data type. Okay, and then we
In
have,
case of char, I think char
yeah,
and varchar.
yeah. So it can be varchar of 50, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then we have let's say integers. So m1 integer, okay, then m2 integer, and so on. Okay, so this is how we will create the table. So we have now seen one example for creating the table, one example for selecting the rows from the table. Okay, you can also select select all the details. Say if you want, select, let me just copy paste that, so then both the examples will be visible.
Select star from student
Yeah,
A.
it can be done as select. Oh, wait, I'm unable to see that, so let me type it. Select student table. Okay, so these are the operations like reading. Then you can have another thing as updating. Okay, then you can have another thing as deleting. Then you can have another thing as inserting. So all of these things are there. Okay, so this is what you call as SQL, and this is what you call as a database. Okay, now going further, So going further, you have installed the Django, and Django gives you a different environment, right? Different environment, and you have something called Django admin. So you do Django admin, start project, and then you give the name for your project. And we have seen that it creates the folders and it creates the files. And we have now discussed already what are the files and the folders, and then we have already seen Python manage, run server, etc. Okay. So over here in this particular thing, right, when you were creating the polls app, you created the project and then you created an app after going into that project folder. So the project was named as my site. So you went into that my site folder, and in the my site folder you created Python I'm sorry, not here, but not here, okay, the application polls app. Yeah, in the my site application you created an my site project, you created an application called polls. Okay, now the polls contained a new directory was created which contained multiple files. Okay, and these files you have modified here and there. Okay, and at one place you have something called the HTTP response and HTML, etc. Right. So if you look at the multi-threading and web development, right, we can see that there is something called introduction to Django, models, templates, forms, and there is something called introduction to HTML also. So I hadn't actually spent much time with HTML. So let me just show you about HTML. So HTML, or hypertext markup language, is a programming language with which we can actually create these pages that we see on the on Google. Right now I am seeing a page, right, where I have searched for HTML on Google. So what I will do is I will right click on this page and I click on view page source. Once I click on the view page source, right, you can see that it kind of oh, by the way, let me not show you this particular thing because this contains a lot of JavaScript, etc. as well, and it's going to be a little bit confusing. So let me show you the website of IIIT Tiruchirappalli. So I will go to iitt.ac.in and our website is loading. Okay, so right now our website has loaded, and we see that there is the logo part at the top, then there are some buttons, then there is something that is scrolling, then there are some pictures that are shown at the middle, and then there is something like the mission and the vision of this institute. Then you have at the bottom you have like 3 boxes, one box showing events, another box showing news, and another box showing notices. Alright, so how was this whole thing created? So if you right click on this page and you click on the view page source, you will see something called the HTML. So HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Okay, so this is called HTML, and with the HTML we have created the entire page like this. Okay, so you can use HTML to create pages like this. So in this particular example, when we look at the view source of IIIT Tiruchirappalli, if you omit the meta tags, right, so these are called tags. So for example, this is a HTML tag, this is a head tag, okay, and then you have the title tag. Okay, so once we go to the institute website, we can see that on the tab title it is showing IIIT space Trichy. If you look at the source, we can see that the page title is shown to be IIIT Trichy. Okay, so what I am going to do is I am just going to do an F12 and I think I will be able to just show you some things quickly. So head, and inside the head is where the title is. Okay, so I am just looking for the title. I know this is the title, so I am going to write it as IIIT, or I am going to write it as CS151. Okay, now I have what I have done is I use the inspect element of my browser and I change the title to CS151, and you can see the title also changed of IIIT Tiruchirappalli. but this is just visible on my browser. If you go to iitt.ac.in, it won't be visible to you. It is visible on my web browser. So which means that it is this code that is actually driving what I see on this particular website, correct? Is that all right, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there is something called W3 schools that you can go to, and you can look at the HTML tutorial. Okay. So the HTML, right? It is enclosed. So every page, every HTML document will contain this HTML tag and the closing HTML tag. Okay. So the HTML tag and the closing HTML tag. Malot Nishant, you can keep your microphone muted because somebody else is speaking at your end.
ఇక్కడ ఒకటి వేయాలి అసలు యాక్చువల్ గా
ఇక్కడ ఒకటి ఉండాలి అది.
Okay. So we have the HTML tag and the closing HTML tag, and similar way we have the head tag and the closing head tag. Okay, and similar way we have the body tag and the closing body tag. So a HTML page will contain mainly two parts, which is the head and the body, which is together enclosed in the HTML.
HTML.
Alright, so you have the HTML, and inside the HTML you have the head part, which is the header part of that particular website or the web page that you are looking at, and then you have the body part. In the body part, in this particular example, we have one heading in H1 heading and one paragraph. Okay, so the heading H1 is enclosed in the tag H1 and it closes with /H1, and the paragraph tag is P and /P. I showed you this, try it yourself last time, right? And I showed you that I can include another H2 tag here if I want.
Yes, sir.
Right, subheading. So this is what you can think of as HTML. Now when it comes to Django, okay, when it comes to Django uses something called templates. Okay, so Django uses something called templates. So for that, right, it will be easy for me to show it you using the GitHub. Yeah. Okay. So this is a PHP applications. Oh my goodness, it's a PHP app. Okay, and in there is a folder called templates, and in this particular folder PHP, which is the app, you have something called urls.py, which I have already discussed with you, if you remember. So in this urls.py, let's say if I go to PHP applications, phpadmission.iitt.ac.in/personal or /login, then we know that this is the view that is going to get this is actually a little bit confusing. It's actually not a view, it's actually a controller. Okay, it's a controller that is getting called. It's actually saved in the views.py file. Actually we should have separated it, but we didn't, okay, for some reason. So it should be, it's actually a controller. So we have a personal details function, and the personal details function is going to execute once I go to the URL, let's say phpadmission/personal, right? So once I go to this particular page, some code that is staying on the institute server is going to get executed, right? So I tried going there, but it is saying that you need to log in. Have you logged in? Okay, you need to log in, and after login it will take me to the /personal. So I can enter the usernames, let's say for example anoopjt@iitt.ac.in. Okay, so it has still not taken me to the /personal page. Why? Because I have not linked it with a particular application. If I link it with a particular application, it's going to take me to the personal page. Okay. So let's take a look at the views personal details. So the views personal details is there in the views file. So I'll just search for personal underscore details, and we know that there is this function called personal details, okay, that is responsible for showing this particular page to me, correct, which is responsible for showing this page to me. Now at the end of this particular function, once the entire function executes, correct, from the line number 220 onwards, it will execute, and at line number 265, okay, at line number 265 there is this particular return, and this return render request base details.html, and this context is what will help me with the templates. Okay, now Jinja is a templating language, and so I know that there is something called base details, and then in the base details we use some variables like form, heading, button, application number, current page, etc. So let me just go to base details. So the base details is there in the templates folder, and this is the base details. So I go to the base details, and it says that it extends base generic, okay, and I told you that there is something called title, there is something else called the application number, correct, then the username, okay, and these details. So this, in this particular example, right, this is somewhat related to the actual HTML I showed you. It is HTML, but with some additional things that is actually over here. So this particular thing that is inside the curly braces is something additional, and this particular thing that is within the curly braces is again additional, okay, which is a block title, okay, and this is the end block. Then you have the username. So in this particular case, user.name, it will actually try to get the username from the context that you have passed. So you have passed a dictionary when you are returning this particular function, and it will pass the username. You have seen that it also passed the application number, etc. So this application number will get rendered here, like how you see PhD IIIT 00136, and over here Dr. Anoop Jacob Thomas admin. So how did it say username, right? So welcome Dr. Anoop Jacob Thomas admin. So here I have just used user.name and then the application number, but it has actually entered all the details properly. So this is what you call as the templates, okay. Now we have already discussed about the models, we have discussed about the controllers, and we have also discussed about the templates or the views. So this is what you call as the Django application. If anybody has any doubts, after trying out or after discussing all these things, because I would say right now this will be complete. We are not going back to this particular topic again until I have a question and you have to practice that, okay. Otherwise I am going to say that this is done.
Sir, we can use decorators also in Django.
Yes, you can use decorators. So in this particular example, right, we have used decorators. So if you look at the views.py, let's say the same personal details function, here in the line number 220, it's a decorator that is used, and in this one it's a decorator that is used, this one also is a decorator that is used. While with this incomplete application valid access, right, you can say that it is defined on line number 71, and that is a decorator that we ourselves have created, okay. So I am just going to go to that particular line number 71, line number 71, yeah. So this definition, incomplete application. Okay. So here we are actually this is a decorator that we have created. Okay. Decorator means in this Python Django's context, whenever a function is going to get executed, okay, it will get executed only if these decorators or these things also hold true. Okay. Say for example, line number 220, login required. So if the user has not logged in and tries to goes to phpadmission.iitt.ac.in/personal website, right? Let's say this is the URL, logout. I clicked on logout and I just go to this page and I now go to phpadmission.iitt.ac.in/personal. It is asking me to log in, and this is done by none other than this particular line that is there on line number 220. Okay, and that is login required. Then you have another thing called transaction atomic. This is something related to the database. Let's say you're getting some information from the database and you're updating some multiple objects in the database, multiple tables. What if I updated one table and I have 10 tables to update? After updating one table, there was a power failure at the server side. What would happen? I would be in a mixed state. That is, I had already started updating the tables, but I updated only one table, and I have another 9 more tables to be updated. But all of a sudden, there was a power failure and the server went down. So which means that once I updated it that way, the database is in an inconsistent state because it updated one table and it did not update the rest of the 9 tables. But all of these updations, if done together at the same time, only makes sense. Okay, say for example, I am giving you an example. Let's say myself and Bhadraksh Bhargava. So Bhadraksh is trying to send me some money from his bank account. Think of it in terms of database transactions. So Bhadraksh is going to first detect 500 rupees from his account, and then or the transaction that is going to be performed is going to perform 2 operations. One is it is going to detect some money from Bhadraksh Bhargava's account, and then once the money is deducted, it is then credited to my account. Alright. But what if in between these 2 operations there was a power failure? I did not get the money and Bhadraksh Bhargava lost the money, but Bhadraksh wanted to give me the money, correct? So this is kind of a problem in database, meaning that you cannot leave a database in an inconsistent state, okay? And there is something called atomic transaction. Atomic transactions means that is the smallest atom of a transaction, and an atomic transaction means that in the particular example that I was discussing, where Bhadraksh has wanted to send me some money, right? Example, this transaction has to be atomic, meaning that the debit and the credit has to happen same time. If one of that doesn't happen, then let us discard the entire transaction. Okay, let's say Bhadraksh, the transaction first debited some money from Bhadraksh's account, and when trying to put it into my account, there was a power failure. That's the scenario that we are discussing. Now, let us assume that if both of these happen, only then we will call it as a transaction. Okay? Otherwise, we will not let both these transactions happen. That is called an atomic transaction, meaning that it has to happen as one single entity. So over here, right, here we are getting details from the database, say application.objects.get, application number is equal to application number, account.objects.get, email is equal to request.user.email. Okay, this is, we are getting the information from the database. And then we may also be we are also doing saving, which means that after we are done with some information, after the user enters the details, say let's say I go to the particular page Anoop JT at IIIT, yeah, okay, so I go to this page, I go here, okay, let's say I can go back, I can make some changes to it to be part time, I can make some changes to be mechanical engineering, correct, and I can save and proceed. Oh, by the way, I need to enter the area of research and all of those things. So 1 2 3 4, some number 55, I think I have to enter all of these details. Okay, male, married, general, Divyang, nationality, let's say I am from Australia, just like, okay, I'm an Indian, region of applicant, I'll say NA, and I click on save and proceed. Now you can see that it has actually gone to the next page. Now if I go back and click on the personal details, all the information that I have entered just now is particularly saved. So how was this done? This was done by the application.save and the details.save. Okay, so these are two tables. So one is the application details, application, and another one is the personal details. So both are saved. Okay, but my question is, what if at line number 259, just after this application.save function, save method is executed, there was a power failure, then the details.save will not get executed, right? So in this particular situation, what we consider it is that both these operations have to be considered as one single operation. If it cannot be performed as one single operation, then stop it right away. That is what you call as a transaction, atomic transaction. And then you have something called an incomplete application valid access. That is something that you can look at in the line number 71. So yes, Django, we can use something called decorators, and a decorator is a very simple, easy way. A decorator is a function which will return true or false. Okay, a decorator is a function which will return true or false, and only if these three returns true can this function personal details execute. Is it clear, students?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that is about Django and HTML and models and templates and forms. Now I want to tell you about something called multi-threading in Python and concurrent threads. So I was just trying to think how can I explain it to you, and I think I will start with the system monitor. Okay, so I'm starting the system monitor. Why is my computer taking a lot of time to open up certain applications? Okay, so I think I'll take it from the terminal and I'll show it from the terminal. So you know, from the previous semester, whenever we were discussing about a computer program, right, we know that a computer program is something that it needs to be loaded into the memory and then it is executed, correct? So we have already discussed that in the previous semester as well, and we know that when we are running a program, right, it is loaded into the memory, and once the program stops running, it is deleted or it is removed. Okay. So in this particular example, oh my goodness, my system is very slow for some reason, and I am not using multiple tabs, etc. also. Why is my terminal also not loading? Okay, great. Okay, right. So I am going to type ps minus aux. Okay, I typed ps minus aux, and that kind of opened up a list which contains a lot of processes that are mentioned. Okay, it says that the first command sbin/init has the PID 1. It uses 0.1% of the CPU and 0.1% of the memory, and it is run by the user called root. Okay, and you can see that there are other processes with another process with process ID 2. Okay, another process with process ID 3, another process with process ID 4, another process with process ID 6, and so on. Okay, so there you have multiple processes with multiple process IDs. Okay, so we have multiple processes. Say even the Google Chrome browser that I am using is running as a process. Oh, by the way, this is okay. Yeah, my system monitor also opened. So if you look at processes, right? Clicked on processes. Even that switching is taking a lot of time. Yeah. So I clicked on. Oh, why? How do I have FFmpg marks? Okay, because it's okay. Right. So yeah, I clicked on the processes, and you can see that there are multiple processes that I actually mentioned over here. Okay, there are multiple processes that are mentioned over here. That one is like FFmpg mux, and if I click on, if I hover my mouse pointer on top of that, I kind of know that it is my OBS Studio which is responsible for this particular process. And then I have the Chrome web browser. Okay, then I have the S Office, that is the LibreOffice. Okay, which was showing me this particular, when I try to use a spreadsheet and I wanted to show you something. Then I have something called the Telegram desktop. Okay, then I have something like the C host agent, and then I have the SSH agent. So you can see that there are multiple processes that are there, that are shown in my computer resources. Okay, and these processes are the ones that are actually using up all the 8 CPUs that are listed on my computer. Okay, and these processes are the ones that are using the memory and the swap space, and these are the same processes that uses the internet or the network. Okay, where I am, where it is receiving some data with 700 or 60 kilobytes per second and sending that data at around 300 kilobytes per second. Okay, so you can see that these are all the processes that are running it. Okay, now let's try to understand what exactly is a process. I hope you guys are not in a hurry. Okay, so let's take a look at what is a computer process. Okay, so I looked at process and I searched for computer specifically, and there's some particular process computing on Wikipedia. Let's try to open up that particular page and see whether that can tell us what a process is. Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay, so this is a pretty good explanation of what we have learned so far, right? So we have the disk or the hard disk that is mentioned over here, where the program or the computer program resides, which means that it is the code that the computer code. It can be Python code, it can be C code, okay, and the code includes the instructions or the command 1, command 2, command 3, command 4, or the instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3, instruction 4, and up to instruction n. So that is your program or the source code which resides on the hard disk and or the USB drive. You can think about it that way also. And then you have something called the RAM or the memory area. So once the program is instantiated, the program is moved into the memory as a process. Okay. Now this memory is where each processes are kind of where processes reside and processes execute, or I wouldn't say execute, but where the process actually stays until it is no longer needed. Okay. So which means that you have multiple processes, which are the different programs that are loaded or instantiated are on the RAM. So you can have multiple processes, just like how we have seen with the different processes over here in my computer as an example. So you have process 1, process 2 and up till process m. So multiple processes are there in the RAM, okay, and these processes will now execute on the CPU, on the central processing unit. So I am saying that we have the processes and then it executes in the central processing unit, okay. And in between they say that there is something called a scheduler, which is a part of the operating system, which will schedule which process to execute first, then it will schedule which process to execute second and which process to execute third, etc. Say for example, on your mobile phone, when you look at your mobile phone, you will have come across a particular option saying that turn off background data for applications and execute only applications which are in the foreground. Have you seen these kind of options?
Yes.
Okay, which means that now we are trying to discuss about a computer system on which we have multiple processes that are residing at the same time. So multiple processes are there in a computer system. A mobile phone is not different than a computer system according to me, okay. A mobile phone is also very similar to a computer system. So you have multiple programs or multiple applications in your in your memory, and those are the processes, okay. So one process, let us say your Gmail application would be the one that you are looking at present. So which means that the Gmail application would be using your graphics card, will be using your internet more than the other applications. And once you switch from Gmail to WhatsApp, then the WhatsApp will update, WhatsApp will fetch the new messages, etc. And once you switch from WhatsApp to Instagram, it will fetch the new stories for you, etc. And once you switch from Instagram to Facebook, it will do the same things. So this is what you call as the applications, and you are switching between these things. But when it comes to the real applications that are running on a computer, right, there are multiple applications, correct? The same way on the phone also there are multiple applications. Let's assume that we have let's say let us assume that my goodness, there's somebody disturbed me in between, sorry. So yeah, so there are multiple processes, okay. So these processes, right, are loaded onto the computer's memory and they will execute until they produce a result or until I click on close. okay, until it produces the result or until I click on the close. So if it has to produce the result, or if it has to if I am using it to browse the internet or something, then it means that more than one process is running at the same time on my computer. More than one process will be running at the same time on my computer. But look at this, there are only 8 CPUs that are listed here. So which means that if there are 64 processes, then I will give few seconds to one of the process, then another some next few seconds for another process, then next few seconds for another process, and so on. Okay. So this is how, what you call as something called the context switch, and it will go on selecting which of the processes, etc. So that is what I wanted to discuss about process. So here also they have shown you the list of the processes by htop, right. So instead of that I used ps minus aux. I think I can use htop also here, but htop is also not installed. And then there are these are the same processes. Okay. Now I would actually look for something called threads. Okay. Now in each process, okay, in each computer process, so you can think of a process as this particular circle. Okay, a process which starts at time point t and ends at t plus n. Okay. In this process, right, I can have multiple threads, thread 1, thread 2, and these threads also could be executing parallelly. These threads also could be executing parallelly, meaning that the thread 1 and thread 2 in this particular example could be executing at the same time. So if you look at this process, this circle, this thread 1 you can say as some statements, thread 2 as some statements, but thread 2 executes just after thread 1 finishes executing part A, and it stops before thread 1 starts executing part B. Okay. So this way you have 2 threads in a process. Okay. So let me look for some more images. Yeah, that would be a better thing to look at. So this is particular notes from your operating system textbook. Okay. So this is what you should understand. Okay. So when you call a process means that it is a program code which contains some data, and it may be also looking at some files, and it will have some stack area, and it will also use some registers in a computer CPU. So you have the single threaded process over here as an example, where you have a thread means the set of statements. So this is a single threaded process, meaning that it will be the only process that will get executed. Okay. In this particular example, we have a multi-threaded process. Okay. Imagine it like this. In a single threaded process, imagine that you are a chess player. So it is just one single player who is actually doing all the moves. The next thing is a computer opponent. Okay, that we are not interested. So imagine the single threaded process as a chess game, where you have one person playing all the moves. And in this example, this is a multi-threaded process, where you have again the program, data and the files, but you have the registers and the stack separated for 3 set of statements, and these 3 set of statements are called different threads. So I would think of it as a football or a cricket game match, where one team is a multi-threaded process. Okay. In the left side example, I told you that it is a single threaded process, where I have a, let's say I have an example of a chess game. Chess game. Okay, I'm not worried about the opponent. Opponent will be another process. Okay, so I am a single threaded process playing the chess game. This is an example of a chess game process where one single movement is done at the at every point. Okay, and this is a multi-threaded process where I have a team of players playing cricket for me. I am, let's say I am the bowling team, okay, and the fielding team. So 11 players. Am I right? Is it 11?
Yes.
Yeah. So 11 players will be in the fielding part of the cricket game, right? So let's say this guy is the keeper, this guy is the bowler, this guy is the, let's say, the outfield or something like that. Okay, and then you have another thread and so on. So you can think of it as a multi-threaded process which contains 11 threads or 11 people in one team trying to make your team win. Okay, so that is what you call as a thread. So a thread is a basic unit of CPU utilization consisting of a program counter, a stack and a set of registers. Okay, so traditional heavyweight processors have single thread of control. There is one program counter and one sequence of instructions that can be carried out at any given time. Okay, as shown in this figure 4.1, multi-threaded applications have multiple threads within a single process, each having their own program counter, stack and set of registers, but sharing common code, data and certain structures such as open files. Now this is very important. Two processes cannot share the code or the data or the open files, but
Sir, can we please end the meet right now? Sorry for disturbing, sir. I
okay,
have to go to function, sir.
okay, I understood. Okay, can you give me like maybe 5 more minutes, Rudraj?
Okay, sir.
All right, thank you, Rudraj. Okay, so this is what you call as a process, and then you have threads, and threads are actually set of instructions that are inside the process. Okay, so which means that you can actually create multi-threaded applications. For example, let us assume I am going to the website YouTube, and I am going to the website YouTube, okay, and I am going to play some random video on both the tabs. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just telling you, both videos will be playing at the same time, correct? Now in this particular example, your Google Chrome is a process and the tabs which are playing the YouTube videos are the threads. Okay, so tomorrow we will learn about multi-threading in Python. Okay, so I want you to read up about processes and threads, okay, before you come to the class. Okay, so now just time for attendance. Ridhraj, you may leave. I will mark your attendance. So I have a question.
Yes.
How can multiple threads be useful for us rather than single thread?
Sir, it can be used when we
Multitasking,
want.
sir.
Okay, whoever wants to go ahead, please go ahead.
Sir, I was saying that multi-threading can be used for multitasking, sir. As its name suggests.
Multitasking, yes, you can think of it that way. You can think of multi-threading as one single person doing multitasking,
Yes, sir.
right? And single threading means that you can think of one person doing only one task and not
Yes.
anything else in between. So
Sir, it can be used when we are handling asynchronous code, like when we want to get data, and while the data is coming, we can do other stuff.
yes. Okay. So Bhadraksh is saying that we can do these multi-threads to do asynchronous task, meaning that let us say we have one program, okay, and that program is divided into two threads, and one thread is waiting for data to be received, okay, and let's say it may take some time, x amount of time for the data to be received. At that time your thread is blocked or your thread is waiting for the data, okay. So which means that if it is a single threaded application, your process will also wait, but if it is a multi-threaded application, one thread can wait for the data and one thread can go ahead and do the work, okay. That those two examples given are good examples, okay. This is wondering if I can. Yeah, I'll give you one more example. Say, for example, I am going to give you this kind of a table. Okay, I'm not this one. I'm going to give you another table which has, let's say, 100 or 100,000 columns and let's say 500,000 rows. Okay, so I'm saying 100,000 into 500,000 rows. Okay. Now, if I have to process all these 5 lakh rows, okay, I can do it either as a single threaded application, okay. So let's assume that we want to calculate the average for all these people, and let's assume that there are like 5 lakh averages to be calculated, okay. If I have one single threaded application and it takes x amount of time for calculating one average, then I am going to take 500,000 into x the whole time for execution, correct? Or 5 lakh x time is going to be used, okay, if it is single threaded. If I have 5 threads, okay, then it would take 5 lakh x by 5 times, by 5 time, okay, as in I would say duration. Is that clear to you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what you call as parallel computing, okay, or parallel processing, which means that you can actually use one thread to process let's say 1 lakh entries, another thread to process another 1 lakh entries, and both these threads can do it at the same time, okay. So the whole duration will be divided by 5. So which means that if it takes 5 hours in total, right, in this particular situation it will take only 1 hour, okay. So that is the advantage of doing such parallel processing, okay. Now going back to the attendance, today is 18th. Students, please tell your roll number when you see it on the screen.
2, sir.
Roll number
Abhishek.
1 sir.
1,
Roll number 8, sir.
Sir, 2, sir.
5 sir.
Abhishek, sir.
2,
Sir, roll number 3.
4, 5,
Roll number 5, sir.
yeah,
7
7,
Sir, 4.
Sir, 10, sir.
yeah,
13 12 Ritura sir. Sir 14
Sir, 15, sir.
15, 15.
19, sir.
17.
18 Nishan.
Yeah. Abhishek was also present.
Sir,
I saw him.
22.
22,
Sir, 21.
21,
27.
28.
28. Yeah.
27, sir. 27.
27.
27.
Yeah. Prajwal was also present. I saw him. Okay. 20, 23, 24, 25. What about the rest of the people?
30, sir.
30.
35.
35, sir.
Yeah.
34, sir.
34.
29, sir.
29. Okay, so I'll tell you the students who are absent. Roll numbers of the students who are absent are 6, 9, 11, then 20, 23, 24, 25, 31, 32, 33, 36 and 37. Okay. Thank you everyone. So today we have covered templates, okay, in Django. It's Jinja template. So I just give you a quick overview, and we also discussed about what actually database is. Okay, we have you must have used the SQLite database, okay, instead of the MySQL database, which is fine because SQLite database is file based, okay, and easier to set up. But this is more efficient. MySQL is more efficient. Okay, SQLite is not very efficient, but still it is okay to get started with. All right. So that is what databases are, and after databases we discussed briefly about the template and then briefly about the threads. Okay. So for the threads, I want you to do a quick reading about what are processes and threads in computers. Okay. So for that, I think you can, I'll give you this link as well. Right. Akash, can you please share this link with all of your classmates? Akash is not there. Can somebody else volunteer? Abhishek?
Yes, sir. I will share.
Please share this link with everyone. Ask them to go through this particular link, okay, and ask them to read it once. Okay, not a huge long page. Okay, so if there is a link, try to go in there as well. What is a thread? Why multi-threading? Process versus thread. So I'll send you this link as well. Okay, Abhishek. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.